Don't try now anymore. Don't try now anymore. He was willing. He just started something. Arvin, one thing you do, one Arvin.
Jai Baba to all of you in the West. I am Eruch. I speak from Ahmednagar, and I'm happy to see you all, although I don't see your figures or faces. Yet I know very well from the reports that I have heard how anxious you all are to gather every bit of news of our beloved Baba. I salute all of you for your deep love for beloved Baba. Jai Baba to you all. It will all depend upon our dear brothers Irwin and Edward, how they ask me questions and remind me of the stories of Baba. Because with the advancing age, I seem to forget many stories unless and until somebody reminds me of them.
Well, we can begin with one, Eruch, and that is how you became to be the interpreter of Baba's hand signs and hand gestures.
Well, there is no story behind this. You ask me that we should begin with how I became the interpreter of Baba's hand gestures and signs. Well, I can't recall a particular day when I became one. It was so natural. It seems to me that I was one of the Mandali by Baba's side. And when Baba used to use his board, sometimes when the ones who were reading Baba's board failed in trying to decipher Baba's fast-moving finger over the board, giving out the words, I used to butt in and pronounce the word. So it must have happened once, twice, thrice, 4 times, till a day came when people who were around Baba found that I could read the board. So I started reading the board. Baba encouraged me. And that's how I first started reading the board.
Do you remember one of the first messages that you read?
Oh, no. I remember any first messages that I read from Baba? No, it's impossible. Because it was so natural, you see. It was just one day, that's all, that I began to read. I may not have read the first message. I may read out some first admonition given by Baba to somebody. Who knows? Then it so happened, you see, that for years together, when I was in presence of Baba, I had the privilege of reading Baba's board. During the must tours, or during the visits to the West, or during his visits in India, either for giving mass darshans to the public here, or paying house visits, I had to be very alert. It was Baba's patience alone that carried me through, because on many an occasion I would fail to read Baba's fast-moving finger on the board, and through his infinite patience he would repeat the same words again and again till I picked up the right message. Many years rolled by, and it so happened with the years that passed by, my eyes began to get tired. And Baba would often tell me that he was himself fed up of his silence because he had to interpret his thoughts through the alphabet board. Then he started giving me assurances, month after month. Then it became weeks, and then one day, Baba said he would drop using the board. And it was just a surprise to me, because many a time Baba had told me that he would stop using the board. Of course, it was a sort of a relief when I heard that. Little did I know the repercussions of Baba stopping the use of the board. The day he stopped using the board, everything came to a standstill. Baba wouldn't condescend to even say out anything. It was very, very difficult for us to converse with Baba without the board. We became helpless, and our beloved Baba, who was continuing his silence, remained helpless without the board. A day passed, another day passed, and then we had to beg of Baba to find out some other ways or means through which he could communicate to us what he wanted. Of course, there were the usual gestures of Baba for tea, say, suppose. He would do just this for tea. Then for water, he would do this. For milk, he would do this. Those could be followed, you see. But then what about the regular conversation? Day after day, we missed that. So I think it was on the second or the third day, we pressed Baba to give us some outlet. And then he said there was nothing more to be said. There was nothing more to be conveyed to the world. He had given so many things out through his alphabet board in his silence. But then I was hearing certain rumors, you see, that he was going out on tours and that he would be meeting the public, you see. He would give audience to the public. And I was feeling very, very sad as to how would it be possible for me to communicate whatever Baba wanted to the people, or to the group, or to a family, or to an individual who approached Baba, or who would remain in Baba's presence even for a minute. I was the one who was most anxious that Baba should drop using the board, so that it would give rest to my eyes and the concentration that I had to have at the time of reading the board. Just as Baba expressed that he was fed up with the silence, so was I must tell you frankly, fed up with reading Baba's board. But then, this dilemma was confronting me when he gave up the use of the board. How to communicate, what to tell people, what Baba wanted us to know. So, I implored Baba to give us some method by which we could freely communicate with Baba and Baba could communicate with the people. One evening I still remember, it was at Satara, about 70 miles from Pune where Baba was staying. He called me by his side, made me sit down. Baba was on a sofa set and I was squatting in front of him. Just then, he said, he gestured for the first time and did this. And he said that was A. I said, A? Baba nodded his head. A. My face brightened up. I felt very much cheered that Baba is now going to give me the alphabets for the first time. Then it was B, Baba said, and C, and D, and he pointed to his ear saying that it is E. And then he gave no sign for F. And then he said, here is G. And here is H. And then he gave no sign for the letter J. F and J were not mentioned by Baba. Then K was like this. K. L. M. N. O or O. P and Q would be this, and R would be this, and S would be the opposite of R. T, the famous sign T. U, V, W, X, Y would be this, and Z he would point out as this. So I learned the alphabets from Baba. And then, of course, Baba also practiced the alphabets, you see, and started forming little words from them. And as days passed by, we were amongst ourselves, that is between Baba and myself, very free with the conversation. And that's how I started to decipher his gestures through the fingers, the signs that he made. But I must tell you all frankly that reading his fingers was not the only means of communication. The stress, the emphasis that I had to put, for that I had to read his facial expressions too. How big his eyes he would dilate, or how he would bring out a smile, or the expression on his face or cheeks or on his forehead. Every little expression. How he would press his jaws, you see. All that counted very much, very much, that I could communicate the right sense that was to be communicated from Baba to the one to whom it was directed to. Through Baba's help and grace, I could read his finger signs fast, faster still, and very fast. And you may call it his grace or his will, that even I could, before he could finish the word, I could put in that word completely. Before he could letter the word, so to say. Just as if he wants to say word, he starts saying W-O-R, and before he finishes R, I would say word. So, people who were around him, and even the Mandali who were around him, felt that Eruch was trying to say things out before Baba wanted to say anything. And with a very jolly mood, you see, Mandali would sometimes come and say to me that, well, they wouldn't call me out by my name as Eruch, but they would say, hello, Baba says, come out, Baba wants you. So my name, I was nicknamed as Baba says, because every sentence I had to say would be, Baba says, and then decipher the gesture. Otherwise, they would think that it was Eruch who was speaking out. So I was nicknamed, and I'm still named as sometimes as Baba says. So that's how Baba's messages, discourses, and certain writings got printed through his finger signs, facial expressions. And the emphasis I had to lay was just because of his facial expressions. Baba was not only a perfect person, but Baba was a perfect producer and a reproducer of his thoughts through his gestures. So Irwin and Edward, this is how gestures and words were spelled out by me.
You once mentioned that Baba would have you say the 100 names of God before him. And how would he go about that with you? Would he have that you repeat that very slowly? What would occur when he would have you do that?
Well,
what was the expression and the feelings?
you see,
You at that
yeah, you see, the thing is, you ask me about how would Baba express himself when I would read out to him the 101 names of God. You must know that in Zoroastrian scriptures, the language is Zand, it is called, as it is called. It's not Persian, it's called Zand. And Avesta is the holy book. So, means the Zoroastrian scripture. In that, there are 101 names of God in the Zand language. As children, we are taught by our parents to repeat the names, 101 names of God, almost every day. To be very fair and frank to all of you, I must say that I do not remember the 101 names by heart now. But there was a time, years on end, when I used to repeat the 101 names every day because my parents wanted them to be repeated. Little did I know the meaning of the words or the significance. But it so happened that once Baba sat down with a Mandali and gave us the meaning of each name of God in English. And we jotted the names down against each Zand name that was there in the scriptures. And then we got that name, English translation typed out. And then very frequently, I should say, Baba would ask me to repeat those names, read them out to him. Every name that I would repeat, you see, he would just gesture how perfectly said, how perfectly named is God. What glorious name for him. What a marvelous thing he is. How beautiful he is. How effulgent he is, and so forth. So with every name that he himself had given in the translation, he would marvel the way the name was given to God, you see. It was so appropriate, so beautiful a name. Well, this is how I used to repeat frequently. Even a few days before Baba dropped his body, he asked me to repeat the names of 101 names of God. And I repeated them. And they are really very good. Really very good. It gives some idea as to who God is.
Do you recall any incidents of Baba's awakening his compassion, where you started to really become aware of his compassion?
Well, you speak about his compassion to me. Well, yes, he did awaken in me the conviction of his avatarhood through the feelings that I had about his infinite compassion. Well, Baba used to tell us all that he is the avatar, that he comes again and again, that he is the ancient one, he is the one sought by all, and so few find. How blessed we were to have found him. How much more blessed we were to be living with him. Well, all these delighted our ears. Was there anything in our hearts? These were the words from the perfects of the Ancient One. As I just now said, they delighted my ears, you see. That he was the avatar, that he was God in human form. But how am I to know that? My ears heard this. My eyes witnessed certain phenomenon. But how can my heart be convinced of the whole thing? How?
That's the question.
Well, as you say, that's the question. I'm not made of one who would readily take in things. I started, you see, analyzing different things, you see. Well, I used to say, Baba is a good man. Baba is really kind. Well, Baba expresses affection. And that was very happy to witness all these things. But then, all these things did not convince my heart as to he is the same ancient one. There can be kind persons, good persons, loving persons, affectionate persons, and so forth. Then it so happened that we went out with Baba, you see, on tours. And in a crowd of hundreds, you see, people would just turn their heads towards Baba and start gazing at him. So I used to notice this phenomena also. And I would say that, well, he shines out amongst the people there. He must be somebody great. Somebody, he is somebody. But can he be God? Can he be the God-man? Well, then again some months and years would roll by and I would get another proof. All of a sudden, you see, some must, God-intoxicated soul, you see, who had been sitting for years together at the spot, would jump up in attendance in presence of Baba and start glorifying him in words which are not commonly given out to any person. Well, my mind started saying, well, there must be something in this great man. Then another must, and another must, who had never contacted him. They testified to his divinity. Well, they can see. I just gave up. I said, well, they must be seeing certain things within Baba, seeing his divinity, seeing his being divine, that makes them say these things out spontaneously. But what about my heart? I can't see anything. I can't say with conviction that he is the avatar. He is the God-man. Although I have been living with him, although I am being in his proximity almost all throughout the day, you see. And yet, what has happened to my heart? Why does not the heart open, you see? Then Baba gave out that message which consoled me and comforted me, that love is the gift of God to man. Well, I waited patiently for that gift. Maybe one day he might pour into my heart that love, which might help me to testify as the other musts have done to his divinity.
What were some of the things that the must would say that you heard?
Yeah. Well, the musts would glorify him, you see, spontaneously, that he is the one on whose shoulder rests the responsibility of the world. That if he wills, with one breath of his can split the earth into two. That he is the one who is awaited for so long. Some would say that he is Lord Krishna. Another would say that he is the one for whom I was waiting so long. And so forth. These things are all given in the Wayfarers, you see. Not all of them, but some of them have been given like that. What I am saying...
But you were there when they said some of these things.
Yes. So these sayings of these musts, you see, God-intoxicated people, help me a great deal to pay heed to what Baba would say, I should say. But what made me feel convinced about his divinity is something different. And I am coming to that point now. And that was the exercise of his compassion, his exercise of infinite love, infinite patience. I had heard these words, you see, and I had heard this adjective, infinite, you see. To what length you can stretch it, your imagination cannot reach there. My imagination cannot reach. But then there must be a limit, you see, because my imagination has limitations. But I stretched it to its very limit, you see. And I found that his love could not be trapped in my imagination. His compassion cannot be trapped in my imagination. It was far, far beyond it. I remember on several occasions when a person, any ordinary person or even an extraordinary person or a saintly person would have got exasperated. But his patience, his infinite patience stood out in bold relief, you see, and gave me comfort, helped me and made me feel at home with him. When somebody would have just given a blow on my head and driven me out from his presence.
Can you give an instance of where you saw this patience of Baba?
Yes, one instance, it was a daily recurrence, then I felt. Because as I was able to decipher his gestures with greater speed, his finger movements gained greater and greater speed. They were having more speed than I could decipher, you see. And it so happened that a day came when my eyesight somehow or other could not, catch up with his fingers that were snapping here and there, you see. And there would be obstruction in the flow of Baba's thoughts. When, you see, what happens is, thoughts come out, Baba gives out the gestures, because he is a perfect person, a human, a man amongst men. He's not, when he comes down as the God-man, it is a great blessing, a boon on mankind, that he mingles among men as man. He is God, but he condescends to come down for our sake and mingle amongst us as man. And as man, naturally, he expresses his thoughts through his gestures. And you know the speed of the thoughts, and you know how the gestures are. Baba's fingers would move with great speed, but then I must follow them and catch hold of the gestures. I would fail, and again he would repeat. And mind you, it was not repeating only amongst ourselves, before a crowd of thousands of persons, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And there you should see how it is, you see, when there is a bit of hesitation or anything of that sort, it tells upon the psychology of the crowds. But even then he exercised his patience. I could feel that. I could feel my weakness, I could feel my shortcomings, and I felt as if that I could read. And at the same time it was a nice lesson to me, you see. I thought that I never paid any heed, that I never prepared myself that Baba would say things and then I must figure out and I must give out the gestures like that. It was all spontaneous. There was no, clairaudience or clairvoyance or anything of the sort. You see, nothing of that sort. It was just pure mechanical thing, you see, through practice. So, and then, before the whole crowd, you see, when I would just hesitate or mumble out certain words which were not coherent or anything, he would pet me and he would comfort me, and then again he would slow down and then repeat all the gestures and give out the message. That's how, after years, you see, I felt convinced about his infinite love, his infinite patience, his compassion. Now what to say about his compassion, you see? You all have heard and read about Baba's contacts with the poor, with the leper. With the leper he would become one with them. With the blind he would be one of the blind.
We know very little bit about this here, Baba's work with the lepers and the poor and the compassionate side of it.
Well,
a little bit that's been written.
Well, the thing is that...
But you were there?
Yes, I was there. The thing is that when he would be... sometimes he would express a desire that he would want to contact, say, 101 lepers, or say 51 lepers, or say 7 lepers. So what we had to do was to go hunt out these lepers and bring them to Baba. You just imagine, you see, how kind, loving and compassionate he is. He would take great precaution and care for our bodies, that we should not come in the direct contact of the wounds, or that we should touch them, or that we should handle them as Baba would handle them. Baba said that his handling the lepers was absolutely different from our handling them. And therefore we had to take great precautions that we should not touch them. We should be away from them. He was very kind, he was very loving, he was very concerned about our health also. So we would hunt these musts out, bring them to him. No sooner he saw the whole file of these musts, you see, arranged before him, he would feel so happy. He would express his happiness through a beaming smile and just nod at them and make them feel at home in his presence. Then he would go to them and express to them how happy he was that they had come to him. And then each one would be petted by Baba. And then we would make all arrangements for Baba. The most significant thing that he did was that he would ask each individual leper to approach him. The leper would approach him. There was a special table made up for that purpose, which is put in the museum room at Meherabad.
Yes.
You have seen that, yeah. So there were some steps there, a table-like thing. Then the steps would take them down. So Mandali would handle them to the extent that they were just made to go on the table, and that too very delicately and with great precautions. As soon as they stood on the table, well, Baba was very happy. He would be sitting on a chair in front of them, look at them, just express how happy he was to see them. Then he would comfort them, saying that, well, they should not feel that God has given them a certain disease which is incurable, or that God has neglected them, or that God has nothing to do with them. On the contrary, they were very close to God, because their disease makes them secluded from the rest of the world. Baba, I have heard once or twice Baba comforting the whole lot of the lepers who had come there, says, look here, dear ones, how fortunate you all are because of this natural calamity, that so-called calamity that has come to you people. Yogis and those aspirants who aspire to reach God, they leave the world. They have to fight to leave the world and go to secluded spots and remain aloof and segregated from the world. Here you have got a ready chance where the world leaves you and you are left there. You have not to bother about them. So this is such a good opportunity that God has bestowed upon you people, that wherever you are, think of Him. Think of this disease, so-called disease that you have got, as a boon, as a blessing, that the world leaves you and you are there in direct communion with God if you wish to. Then he would say, how beautiful are these souls in dirty cages, you see. Then this he would tell us. Then he would take their feet, you see, wash their feet, and then dry them with a new towel. For each pair of feet, he would use a fresh towel, fresh napkin, dry them, and then put his beautiful forehead touching their feet, their soles, and then he would bless them with his own prasad, a gift from God to man. And that we don't know what help that provides, you see. Sometimes it would be in form of a bundle of new clothes. Sometimes it would be in the form of currency notes or coins. Sometimes it would be a bundle of grain or sweets, packet of sweets, whatever it be. That would be a sort of a contact between the God-man and man as leper. And then, or sometimes he would give blankets to them if the season is cold or winter season. So likewise, each leper who came in front of him was comforted, helped, and love was bestowed upon each one, and each one departed, you see, got down the steps with shining bright faces, you see. We have seen these people coming, you see, as if they were discarded, they were thrown out of society. But when they left Baba's presence, they felt the dignity of their being on this earth. They felt that they were some persons who were also needed by some. And thus Baba would contact them. So often he has bathed these lepers. We would try to see that Baba's hands wouldn't touch their souls. We would try to put gloves on Baba's hands. We would try to cover Baba's body. What would happen, you see, when Baba would wash their feet and all that, the table you have seen, he would be sitting like this, the table is like this. All the water would just pour here, you see, on his own body, on his own legs and thighs and feet and everything. So we would try to put a Macintosh or something like that, you see, so the water doesn't touch him. But after a while, his kindness, his love and compassion is so great. He knows that we love his body. He knows that if he wouldn't permit us to protect his body or to tend after him properly, we would feel displeased. So he would please us by allowing us to do these things. But after a while, very gently, he would remove the things, you see, and be his natural self. And again the same story repeats. He is drenched with the same water that had washed the wounds of the lepers. From head to foot, you see, he is drenched with the disease, so to say. He would embrace them. He would kiss his feet. But he would take great care that we never imitated him. We never did the same thing as he did, because he is something different. He becomes a leper amongst the lepers. That's a different thing. We as human beings cannot do such things. He never wanted us to do these things. He never wanted us to go and contact musts because he did it. He never wants us to contact lepers that he did it. Yes, he wants us to respect them. He wants us to give them a place in society. No doubt about it. He wants us that we should help them. But he does not want us to imitate him in different respects, that we saw him bathing the leper and touching his feet or touching his wounds or doing this or that. He wanted us to take great care of our health. So that's how he contacted the lepers.
Could you tell us a little bit about Baba's compassion with the mad, when he would collect and have the mad people brought to him, the insane?
Yes, when Baba collected the mad, the same story is again, naturally the Mandali around him. After all, what are these people who were around him? What were they doing? They had to do nothing but to do whatever he ordered them to do. And what I felt when Baba contacted the mad. The thing is that, to begin with the story, the most important thing is Baba giving us directions to go and hunt the mad men and bring them to him.
Yes.
Well, it's the same story as we go out hunting for the musts or the lepers or the poor or the sadhus or the saints, you see. We go from place to place, try to pick them up, put them in any conveyance like a horse carriage, a tonga as we call, or a bullock cart or a car or a bus, and bring them to Baba. So naturally, we collect a lot, say a group of, say, 10 of the mad, and bring them to Baba. As soon as they are brought to Baba, they are sometimes very mild, sometimes they express their violence through hand gestures, or they have got expression, you see, wild expression in their eyes, and so forth. But I found out that the way that Baba handled these mad people, he handled them with such tenderness, with such love, that even their madness was, so to say, affected favorably. That they became almost mild in presence of Baba. While we knew the difficulties with which we brought them, and we wondered whether they were really mad in presence of Baba, or what had happened, were we mistaken in bringing such people to Baba. So we found that in Baba's presence, they somehow or other calmed down. And the way that he would handle them with love, you see, and they would respond with love. with affection. To such an extent that I have that experience, that just as when a dog, you see, is given food and looked after well and tries to follow the master, so also even the mad people who cared for none, you see, whenever Baba would come, you see, they would just wait for his coming. As soon as he came and he went from one place to another, they would follow him, you see. They would leave their seats and follow him. They would take cognizance of his presence in their midst and just be with him. And then Baba would play with them, joke with them, just put his hands round their shoulders and walk with them, or just say, take a bet with them, you see, that, well, you will be all right, you see. Well, there is nothing wrong with you. These people are mad people, Baba would say. These people who look after you are mad people. You are very sane. Don't worry, you see. Be happy, he would say. Be happy. Well, that gave them some sort of, I don't know, inner help, or whatever psychological difference that made. You see, I couldn't register that, but I could register it, I could witness it through the change that took place in them. How it worked, I did not know, but the results could be seen.
Also,
and he would not only do that, they would know, they would register that he is the one who is the Lord over all these sane people, so-called sane, as well as the so-called affected people who they were. But he being the Lord, how is it possible for him to clean their toilets? How is it that he condescends to bathe them and crop their hair and all that? He would look after them, he would scrub their backs, he would clothe them properly, bathe them properly, you see. What is it? Who is this person? So even the mad started thinking in terms of who the man is, which is an impossibility for a mad man to give cognizance to a person in a sane manner, in a rational way. And that's how, before my eyes, I have witnessed such scenes that these mad, who were brought as mad, returned as sober and saner persons.
This reminds me of some of the people that are attracted to Baba after taking many, many drugs, and how fast the mind is working. Baba said, like, mind working fast is mad, and under the influence of many drugs, the mind begins to go very fast, like a madman almost, but not quite. And how when they are drawn to Baba and they begin to feel his love, they begin to gradually feel that the drugs, the intoxication of the drugs, are not necessary anymore, but it's the love that they are really in need of. And this is what begins to calm them down, apparently, and draw what I've seen, many of the Westerners that were on drugs to Baba, by just looking at his picture or hearing his words.
Well, it is possible, I should say, because I have seen with the actual madmen. These people of whom you speak, as the boys and girls who took drugs, yes. Well, they were not mad.
No.
Well, but they were sane, but because they were under the influence of drugs, you see, their mind started working fast and faster still. But then, when they came to know of Baba and his compassion and his love, naturally they discarded the drugs, because his love, the stories they heard of him, or the influence of love, which is still pervading on the earth, you see. Because as Baba said, even though he has left the body, physical body, the God-man's physical presence on earth has its own pressure. His love, his compassion, his everything, you see, is still there. That is tangible, that can be felt.
Also,
because we are still in the era of the God-man.
See, also, like, sometimes people feel that it's a madman, it's better off to be a madman, and he's away from the problems of the world and so on, and they feel that he is in a different state, and therefore he doesn't suffer in a sense where it's really considered to really be a lot of suffering. What of this here?
No, that is wrong, you see. Madman suffers a lot, as Baba has said. He suffers tremendously much more than an ordinary human being who is supposed to suffer, because his mind is working very fast. He cannot decide things. He cannot think rationally, you see. He does not know. He does not. He is not responsible for his actions, no doubt. we say that he's not responsible for his actions, but his actions are correlated to the fast working of his mind, you see. And because the mind works fast, he does many actions that are not proper. They suffer. But to think that they are not suffering or that they are not cognizant of their suffering, well, it is not proper to think that in that fashion, you see. Because their suffering is terrible, as Baba has said. Why do I also say that they do suffer is because I have witnessed their suffering in a way from their faces, their facial expressions. When they come to Baba, we find that they are suffering souls who have come to Baba, who have been brought to Baba by us. When they leave Baba, after Baba gives them orders to leave, they are persons whom we have witnessed as having calmed down, cooled down, having had a smile on their faces, a cheerful way of contacting other human individuals, you see. Yes. When they came to Baba, they didn't want the world with them. They were their own world, you see. But when they left with the world to be among the worldly. So that's how, you see, Baba would work with the mad people, you see. Why he could do that? Why he could make the mad feel that he is theirs? Because he would become one of them. That is the secret, you see, and that only the God-man can be. He has to become one with, he is that. He cannot dare to be other than what they are, you see, because he is one of them.
So it's through this compassion of Baba's that you began to recognize his avatar.
Yes.
You would say.
Yes. Through the expressions of his compassion, his infinite love, his mercy, his kindness, all this made me feel that he must be what he says, the Ancient One. And then, in the later stages, I became quite convinced about his avatarhood. Because any ordinary person, you see, expresses his affection, which we call love. Any ordinary person expresses his patience. There are limitations to that. Then there is an extraordinary person who expresses the same thing with a greater degree or greater intensity. But then there are limits to that too. But when in the case of Baba I found that there were no limitations. We tried to exasperate him if we wanted to and test him. But then his patience stood the test. His love stood the test. His affection stood the test. Everything, you see, we found that we had limitations, whereas his attributes had no limitations. And that's what made me feel convinced of his Godhood. Indirectly. Because God is infinite patience, God is infinite love, God is infinite kindness, his beauty, everything. So if God is this, then this man who has these attributes, he must be God. So that's how I got convinced of Baba's divinity and his being God-man. Ada asks me whether I can recollect a day when I could call it to be the happiest day with Baba. To be very fair and frank, I must confess that I cannot recollect any such day, you see. Because to be with Baba was a great privilege. To be near him and to abide by his wishes and to obey his orders was our happiness. Of course, when we talk of happiness, it's a relative term. There is also misery. There is also hardship. Because these are all relative terms. But I must tell you one thing, that I really felt happy on several occasions when he would say that I was his. That filled me not with the fleeting joy, you see, but that gave me strength. And the strength that I had through these words encouraged me to pass my years in his presence. Because I must confess that to be with God-man is not an easy task. To abide by his wishes, to carry out his pleasures, is not a joke. It's not easy at all. Only if he wills it can one be with him. Otherwise, there are innumerable instances when daring persons who have come to him to stay with him, who have dedicated their lives, who say that they have surrendered, they have failed because his pleasure is not there. No sooner he expresses his pleasure, we can have the courage to be near him and live with him. And when he said that I was his, well, that was my happiest day. Moreover, he always used to say that, hold on to me, catch hold of my hand, catch hold of my daman, don't let it go. But my past experience would always give the answer, Baba, I implore you to catch hold of my hand, because I am such a weakling that I have no strength in my grip. So it is, if you were to hold on my arm, it was impossible for me to be away from you. But if I embolden myself to say that I will hold on to your daman, there is a possibility of my grip getting loose over your daman and you slipping away from me. So there another day came when he gave me an assurance that, well, I will hold on to you. And these are the little things, you see. These are the little things that made me stick to him. To say that these are the little things that made me stick to him is also false. It is he who made me stick to him. It was his grace that kept me near him. It was his pleasure that made Eruch be with him. Otherwise it is impossible, I should say. Impossible to be with the God-man if his pleasure is not there. Well, what else had you asked me?
Coach him.
Well, it's a very good query from you, Irwin. First assurance that Baba has given is that whosoever remembers me must know for sure, certainty, that he will be with him. No sooner one remembers him, one finds that one is communicating with him, is in communion with him. Then another assurance he has given is that whosoever repeats the prayer, Master's prayer, will benefit from the repetition. Third assurance has given is that read all my works, read all the messages that I have given, read all the discourses that I have given, and from that try to keep in contact with me as much as possible. Try to find out the ways that pleased me. Try to find out what made me happy and what I disliked.
Did Baba ever speak to you about after he would drop his body? Did he ever say anything to you about that? About after he left his body?
Yes, he did say that after he would leave his body, there would be many people coming in his name, trying to contact him, trying to be near him, but that will be too late for them, for their thinking. They would feel that they have lost the chance, but they should not feel any distress over these things, because he says that I, being God, am eternal, had come as God-man with the body, had condescended to come as man amongst men. Body has dropped. That doesn't mean that God is no more on earth. God eternally is. And because he is, his love is there. His compassion is there. His presence is there. Because how can you call Baba the God-man and say that he is no more amongst us? Baba said that he, being God, having come as God-man, can drop his body as man, but as God he lives eternally, not only in the hearts of those who love him, but also in the hearts of those who do not even know about His presence. For one day they will also know His presence. That's how we find, Irwin, that people who have not heard of Baba, say, for a long time, while he was on earth, that there are many boys and girls who have just come to know of him. And it seems that they have actually fallen in love with this so-called God-man, who is no more in his physical presence. And from the stories that we hear, from the contacts that we have made with such people, we find that Baba's love has touched their hearts, that has drawn them from a distance of thousands of miles, you see, to India to pay their homage to him. How is it possible that a man who is no more in his body can draw people to him? It's not possible for an ordinary man. It must be his love that must be touching their hearts that draws them so close to him.
Eruch, there is a question that probably a lot of people would like to have the answer for, and that is, did you ever feel in the course of the time that you've been with Baba that you wanted God realization or liberation or some sort of divine experience?
Oh, what a funny question, you see, and especially to Eruch. Eruch came to Baba not for God realization. Eruch did not know that he was going to be with one who is God. Eruch came to Baba. Mind you, I say Eruch came to Baba. Baba is a very loving personality, you see. He is my mother, my father, my brother, my friend, my companion, my everything, including God. But I never came to him to seek God or God realization. I always craved, yes, this reminds me, I always craved to be in his presence, there's no doubt about it. One day, it so happened that the Mandali was sitting in front of Baba, and Baba had the pleasure to ask the Mandali what each one wanted from him. So, well, some said that they just wanted to obey him. Some said that they wanted God. Some said that they wanted God realization. I remember having said that I would want from you the boon that I may serve you as long as I am in body. Then there was another person, you see, a young lad who had just come to Baba, and he was from a very poor family. And he says that, Baba, I would want to have a horse carriage so that I can earn my livelihood when I grow old. And I must tell you now at this instance that he did own a horse carriage, and Baba and we sat when one day we went to his place for a must hunt, you see. And we went to his place and we found all of a sudden through accident that he was owning the Tonga, you see. And says, hello, you own this? I said, yes, I had asked Baba and I own it. And it's a fact that there was another person from Bangalore who said that Baba, he would like to do a roaring business. And mind you, he was just an ordinary person who we couldn't even give a thought that he would be owning a store or something like that, you see. So now he owns a big store and he does very good business. They were very young, mind you, at that time. They didn't have any sense as to what they are asking from whom. Were they? They were about 11 years. One was 10 years, another one was 11 years old, you see. But then what we find now, you see, that man really owns a store.
What did you ask?
I asked, as I told you, that I asked for a boon, that Baba may grant me that boon, that I may serve him as long as I am in my body, you see. And Baba was very happy with our answers, especially of the answers of the Mandali, you see. But then he rejoined it. He says, remember one thing, if ever on your own, if you were to ask me or anybody, ask God a boon, first of all, it is futile for any of you to ask anything from God. But if ever your mind tickles you and wants to ask of God something, remember, ask for nothing but desirelessness. And that is asking the most from God. Desirelessness. Then he explained what desirelessness meant. Means if you are full in stomach, say, if you have eaten a very big dinner, so to say, would you have immediate desire to have more food? No. Even if the best of food is spread near you, you won't have. You won't have desire to have food. So if you are rolling in riches, if you have the best of cars, the best of everything, would you want to have that same car again? Another car? No. You have got all the things. So when do you become desireless? When do you happen to be desireless? When you have everything. So if you ask God for having desirelessness, well, you have everything. But when you ask of God for desirelessness, it is not in the sense that you will possess everything, but really ask for desirelessness so that the very fact, the boon that is bestowed upon you of desirelessness does not give you any craving or any wants or any needs for anything. You are above your needs, above your wants, let alone your desires. They are no more there. So that's how one day Baba, in his pleasant moods, you see, called upon us to ask him for a boon. And we asked. Well, I don't know of those who have asked for God realization, whether they have got God realization, or they might get, who knows? Or they are already God realized and yet they don't know.
It would seem to me if you were God realized, you'd know it.
But I must tell you, in our family, that is my parents, my brother, my sisters, all of them never craved for God or God realization or to become saints or any yogis or having any powers or anything. All what we wanted, if at all we wanted anything, was to be with him. Just to be with him. That's all. Not to gape at him, not to gaze at him or adore his face or anything of that sort, but to be handy. So that if anything Baba needed, any work is to be done, we were there as slaves, so to say, by his side. That's all. And time and again my mother would say that if ever Baba would condescend to bestow any gift or boon, allow her to come again and again whenever he happens to come on this earth. And that's my feeling too.
Can you remember any time when Baba tested you in any way, such as your patience or
Oh yes.
any such test?
Oh, he was a great teaser. Baba, you asked me whether Baba was testing anybody. I don't think that he tested anybody, but he was a great teaser. He used to tease us. Oh, tease the Mandali. He would simply say, you see, well, suppose if I am not in the hall near Baba, you see, I am busy somewhere else. So he would tell Baidul or Kaka or somebody, look here, why is it that Eruch behaves in such a manner, you see, with you? What have you done to him? He says, well, I don't know. I haven't done anything to him, you see, but he just behaves like that. You know what happened? Human tendency is that to pick up any straw that is given to them. So, well, he says, well, I haven't behaved anything to him. He behaves like that. Then as soon as I enter the hall, he says, Baba would say that, look what Baidul wants to say, you see. Has he told you anything about it? He says, you behave in a way that irritates him. Then I flare up and he flares up, and then Baba has a great joke, you see, and enjoys. And then he becomes the peacemaker, you see. And then he enjoins upon us to embrace each other and forget about the things. And then he would have a good laugh, you see. So that's how he would sometimes, very rarely, would just have a very light mood or an atmosphere in his presence. But it would be surcharged with great excitement, you see. Each one would roar out, you see, his feelings in his presence. But then, later on, we came to know that he enjoys this little pleasure, so we would put up a show, you see, and just fight like anything, you see, and argue a little, oh yes, and yeah. Then we would just do that, you see, and especially with Gustaji, Baidul, Kaka, myself, Kekobad sometimes, you see, Pendu, and we would have great fun, you see, knowing fully well that it's just a put-up show, you see, that's all. And one day it so happened the excitement was so great that Baidul started roaring with his, false teeth, So he started shouting to such an extent that the upper dentary fell on the ground. So he at once picked it up, shouted inside, you see, and started shouting again. And that was some fun for Baba, you see. And you should see, and that was sort of a quarrel between Kaka and Baidul. Oh, it was fun to see that, you see.
That means something. But the thing now...
And it all happened, you see, that Baba again started teasing because Baidul had brought a certain mast who was passing loose stools, you see. And Kaka was in charge of supplying the material, you see, a carpet for them. So every time the mast would pass a stool, Baidul would change the thing and put a new carpet there. And Kaka got fed up with this and he started shouting, you see. So what happened was that just at that time, Baba happened to go nearby and said, "What's the matter?" They said, Kaka complained that this is the matter, you see, that this man has no sense, you see, instead of trying to clean that carpet and have the same carpet, because this man is passing stool every few minutes. And do you mean to say that I am supposed to wash all the carpets every few minutes? It's a heavy thing, it won't dry, and when will we supply them? Baba told Baidul, he says, Baidul, you should realize these things, why you do that. So then he gave the reasons that it's you who have enjoined me to see to his comfort. That's what Baidul told Baba. And Kaka is obstructing in the way that I am doing it. So Kaka flared up, you see, and said that you have no common sense. And Baidul said that you have no obedience. And likewise, you see, he started shouting at Kaka, and just at that time, the dentures fell. And then he picked the dentures up, put them in the mouth again, and started shouting. So that was a very funny sight, you see, and Baba enjoyed it to his heart's content. We all were there, we also enjoyed at the cost of Kaka and Baidul getting excited.
So while Baba was in infinite knowledge, power, and bliss, he was the perfect man, enjoying the jokes to his heart.
Oh yes. He was enjoying. He brought out these situations, you see. He brought about such circumstances that brought out our nature in his presence. Most probably he wanted us to change, you see. And the deep-rooted feelings for anybody, you see, were brought out to the surface and just thrown out. That's how he worked, most probably with our deeper feelings. What else now you want to ask me?
When you say that you feel Baba's presence, what do you mean by the presence you feel of Baba?
What I mean by feeling his presence is that now, this moment, what are we doing? We are talking about Baba's things. We are bringing back all the actions that had happened in his presence. So actually we are not only bringing his presence here, but we are enacting the same drama in his presence. So that's how day in and day out I have been marking that since he has dropped his body, his presence has become the question of the day, you see. Whether we feel his presence or not, and we say that we feel his presence more so after he has dropped his body. Because when he was in body, we used to take it for granted that he is there. We felt that he was eternal. He would not drop his body or anything. We never even gave a thought to his body. What we felt was that Baba is, was and will ever be. At present, we miss his body, but at the same time, we don't miss him.
You miss the companionship.
We miss not companionship. The thing is that I at least especially misses silence more than anything else. Because I was associated with the silence. Otherwise Baba is there, Baba's episodes are there. The whole atmosphere is live with his presence. He walked here, he sat here, he was this, he was that. But there is no such thing as that Baba wants you all, Baba calls you all, Baba wants to do this, Baba summons you. So those ringing voices you see of his silence are no longer heard. Otherwise everything is just the same, you see. We talk of Baba, we used to talk of Baba when Baba's body was there. Baba used to be present before our eyes. We can't see him, but we feel the atmosphere. We feel that.
What were some of the things that you or the Mandali would do that would suddenly make Baba burst out in laughter?
Well, our expressions of weakness that would make him burst out in laughter, you see. Just as now I gave that incident between Kaka and Baidul. Likewise, there are other incidents, you see. For instance, it so happened, I don't know whether Adi has narrated this incident or not. Adi bought a new car, you see. And he was very happy about it, and he craved to have Baba seated for the first time in that new car so that he could drive Baba out. So it so happened, did he narrate this incident?
I don't recall him.
Yeah. So what happened, he was in Pune at the time, and Baba expressed his wish that he would want to go and see a cricket match. You know, Baba was fond of seeing matches. So, well, it was good. Adi was very happy about it. But then all of a sudden, you see, Baba expressed his wish that he would like Babji to be taken with him for seeing the cricket match. You know the must, Ali Shah?
Yes.
So, the perfect person in Baba wanted a perfect companion, Ali Shah, to see a match, a cricket match. It's something fantastic, you see, to take your must there to witness a cricket match. Naturally, when Ali Shah was in Pune, instead of Baidul was sent out, Gustaji was made in charge of Ali Shah's comforts. So, it so happened that Ali Shah, Gustaji, Adi, Baba, and one or two of us went in that new car of Adi, you see. And we parked the car on the main road in Pune, you see, just where the stadium is. Naturally, Baba wouldn't go inside the pavilion to sit there. He just watched the matches from the roadside. All of a sudden, you see, while Baba was seated in the car, Ali Shah wanted to get out of the car. So Gustaji opened the door, and Ali Shah got out of the car, and very calmly, as if there was no presence of anybody, you see, right on the main road, in the posh locality of Pune city, mind you. He just puts up his shirt, you see. He has no trousers or anything of the sort. And then he passes his stool there right on the roadside, you see. And Adi is so much worried about the whole situation, you see. And Gustaji, as if nothing has happened, you see, he has pieces of paper in his pocket, you see, knowing fully well the circumstances in which he would be put to. Gustaji was a very practical person, you see. So he carried pieces of paper in his pocket, one piece after the other, you see. He would just clean the spot, and another blotch there, and another cleaning, and another, and the sight of Adi made Baba burst out in laughter, you see. The whole situation was so funny, you see. Right on the main road, this must, having disregard for anybody in the world, passing a stool there, Baba right there by the side of the pavilion trying to see the cricket match, Adi with his brand new car, feeling happy that Baba is seated in that, and Gustaji, as if nothing has happened, is just cleaning his parts, you see. So such situations, you see, made Baba burst out into laughter. But being in silence, his laughter couldn't be heard. Whole body would be vibrating, and he would become red as a rose, you see, in face.
How would he look when he laughed?
Red as a rose, and just full in face.
Can you?
No, he would turn red, you see. Pink was his original color. Pink was his original color, yes. But he would turn red, you see.
Could you imitate?
Especially here.
Can you imitate
on his chest also.
Can you imitate how Baba would laugh?
Well, yes. If I can, I would try to. So, well, if there is any funny situation, he would start laughing, you see. So first.
But when you used to make that sound,
like
I want to. Did Baba give any hints? Did Baba give any hints about the dropping of his body before he dropped his body?
Well, I don't think so that he gave any hints about these things. But he used to say something about his personal tragedy, you see. That very soon there will come a time when we will come to know of a very serious personal tragedy, you see. And even Francis dilated upon it. How could there be a personal tragedy or something like that? Well, that was long before he dropped his body, say a month or 2 months before that, you see. And will this appear in the screen?
I don't know. What was it?
There's an ant here, you see.
Oh,
yeah. Here
when an ant crawled on Baba,
yes, he would take particular care, you see, that the ant is not destroyed. So he'll just brush it off very gently, you see. And sometimes we'd be walking, you see, fast with Baba, so at once he'll catch hold of our hand and stop us, says, there are ants there, see that you don't crush them. You just watch them, that they were not crushed under his feet. And he would also halt all of a sudden, hold our hands and draw our attention that there are ants and we should be very careful that we don't crush them. Because once Baba said that if ants are crushed and meet so-called unnatural death at the hands of human beings, they get birth as ants once again. Unless and until they have their natural death, they have no further evolution. So snakes are to be killed and ants are to be saved. That's what Baba said.
Why would snakes be killed?
I don't know. You should ask Baba now in his next advent.
But did Baba tell you snakes should be killed?
Yes, snakes must be killed, Baba said. But ants must be saved.
It would help them in their evolution if they were killed?
Yeah. If snakes are killed, it will help them in their evolution. If ants are killed, it will harm them in their evolution.
You were present when Baba dropped his body. You were in the room at the time?
Yes, I was in the room at the time when Baba dropped his body. I was by his side, by his bedside.
Could you tell us the events of that day? And
oh my, to tell you the events of the day, how should I narrate that? You should read that book, you see, called The Last Sahwas, written by Dr. Hoshang Parucha. You know. He is depicting in that the last moments.
We'd like your personal account.
Well, the personal account is this, that for about 2 or 3 days, if I remember right, because I don't know, except Baba's body, we had no other recollections or no other thought, you see. And we were witnesses to his intense suffering, you see. Not the suffering of a person who is, so to say, ill or ailing. It was some peculiar suffering. The atmosphere itself, so to say, was surcharged with a sort of terrible suffering there. In the midst of Baba's usual jovial nature. At about, Baba dropped his body near about 12:15 midday.
Was he being given medicines at the time?
Yes, it so happened that Padri, you see, had brought some homeopathic pills for Baba. Being a Mandali, he had every right to administer some sort of medicine for Baba's body, you see, the Godman's body. And so he had started giving this, I think, since morning, you see, of that day, 31st of January. And Padri had assured Baba, the Godman, that a couple of or 3 doses, you see, taken every 2 hours would alleviate the suffering, you see. So, at 12 o'clock, mind you, 12:15, Baba dropped his body. At 12 o'clock, Padri is by his side and Baba jokes with him, says, what sort of homeopathy is this, you see, your medicine? You should throw the whole box out of your room, he said. What has it done to me? It has not stopped the ailment. The jerks are there, you see, the spasms that he used to get, they are there. So what sort of homeopathy medicine you are giving? You are sure that it will be all right, you see, within 2 or 3 doses. So better throw the thing out, you see. It doesn't, and that he didn't say through disgust or anything, but in his usual jocular way, he pronounced his judgment that it's useless. Yes, I was there when he breathed his last. He was reclining on that bed, you see, called the surgical bed, and at about, near about 12:15, maybe 12:12, the whole body got a sort of a terrible, went into spasm, you see. And we felt as if the body was just lifted out from the bed. And there, that was the last thing, you see. That was the end of it. That's all.
What was your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction was that I should start the respiration as soon as possible, and I did not know any other method, but I just put 2 fingers in his mouth, you see, and tried to just open the thing and started breathing, in mouth-to-mouth breathing, you see. And then I did that for about, I don't know how long, till I fainted and fell down from the bed. And then when I got up, I found Dr. Donkin, Dr. Ginde, Dr. Brisbane, Dr. Gaber were attending. I don't know what they were trying to do, but some injections were given or some sort of massage to his heart and chest was there. And then I walked away from Baba's body and sat on a chair by the side. That is the end of it. But the doctors pronounced that the body has been dropped by the God-man.
That it, when Baba, sometimes Baba would refer to the suffering, that it was very great. And could you give sort of like an idea of the suffering that Baba went through just in the years that you've known him? That you could see
I can give, you asked me to give you an idea of Baba's intense suffering. But how can I give you any idea of any intense suffering of Baba, you see, which he suffered? The only thing that I can be a witness to is the atmosphere that pervaded at the time. You see, when Baba, you know, in Baba's presence, there are so many witnesses who have said that they came with a tortured mind or an ache in their heart, or they were so much troubled that as soon as they entered in Baba's room and were in his presence, they felt at peace with them, within them and with the world. They felt that calm, that they felt that peace. They felt that soothing balm that they craved for, you see, for their aching bones, as persons crave for some sort of balm or massage. So for their aching heart, they felt that soothing atmosphere was very much pleasant to them. So these experiences were with us. Whenever we were in Baba's presence, you see, we had no idea of the worldly worries or the worries that we had or anything of the sort. But we could testify to his suffering only when we felt ourselves somewhat in an atmosphere that was surcharged with suffering. So at that time we could feel that his body must be suffering. From his facial expressions he just remained. There were no wrinkles on his forehead or anything, just as a man suffers, you see. Now you see me in the picture, you might find me as if I look very tired or exhausted or anything. I have seen there in the picture there, in that television screen of yours, I find myself, I am amazed to see myself so exhausted there in that picture. So, such sort of experience we never had from Baba's physiognomy. He looked as if there was nothing wrong with him. But the atmosphere around him became so surcharged with the agony that he must be passing through that we were affected by that atmosphere. We felt sad. We felt pressed down, pinned down, so to say, with something which we did not know. That's how we felt that he was suffering. And just at that time he would testify that he was suffering intensely. That's all. That is the only clue that we had of his suffering. Of course, physically we could find sometimes, you see, a hand giving a jerk like this, you see, or the body would jump, you see, from the bed like that. All of a sudden there would be a sort of a spasm, you see, and all of a sudden there would be cramps, so to say, and Baba would point out to his toes, or little toe, or big toe, that it was in cramp, just press it, press it. So we would just do that. That's just physical experiences that we could have. Nothing more than that, but his facial expression never revealed any suffering.
And yet all the time Baba would be in that infinite bliss of his godhood, would be behind that. Were you...
Baba said about his infinite bliss that if ever God-man exercised his infinite bliss, he would never suffer. So the God-man keeps his infinite bliss, you see, in reserve, in the background, and experiences it only when he drops the body. It is there, the support is there, no doubt about it. But when he becomes man, when God becomes man and mingles with mankind as man, he never touches the storehouse of his infinite bliss. Otherwise, how would he suffer? He takes the human form in order to suffer.
Did you ever ask Baba why he suffered, why he puts, why he is in the suffering, why he allows such suffering upon himself?
Yes. We never asked anything of the sort, but he himself gave us the explanation to it. He says that he takes human form. For what reason should he take human form? God is omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, wherever his abode be, whether right in the heavens above or right under us, you see, or within us, or anywhere it be, in any direction, if at all God can be given any direction, because his omnipresence never allows any direction. So if he is omnipresent, if he is omnipotent, if he is omniscient, what need is for God to be with man as man? What need is it that he should descend from his godhood to become man? Why? What need is there? So Baba put that question and answers to. He says, God becomes man so that God makes his love more tangible to mankind. God makes his compassion felt more tangibly to mankind. God mingles with man as man so that man can realize his being in their midst, however indirectly it be, yet his physical presence gives a feeling in whole humanity, you see, of something divine, great, something pleasant. It's inadvertently felt by human beings. But then what do we find? That whenever he is on earth, you find dissensions, you find wars, you find murders. Everything is there. There is no change there. When God-man comes to earth, he doesn't make earth a paradise. No. What he does is, his presence as man amongst men makes man aware of the presence of God. And therefore what we find, history, spiritual history repeats, you see, whenever his advents take place, there are always dissensions among mankind, you see. There are always wars. There are always atrocities perpetrated to its height, you see. And you find him there at the time. Through these things, mankind realize or recall his presence, you see. Although he is there at the time, you see. But then they say, oh God, help us. Oh God, where are you? Have you forsaken us? And just at that time, he mingles with mankind. Without man knowing who is his neighbor there.
Without man knowing that God is
there. His own neighbor there, yes. But then what happens, yes, then except for the few to whom he reveals, that too only because he has the pleasure to reveal his presence. Otherwise we wouldn't know it. But he comes there, stillly he comes among men to make his love felt more tangibly. And that's how mankind starts clamoring for God. You see, oh God, where are you? When will you help us? Have you forsaken us? Don't you realize our difficulties? We are full of worries. Please elevate our worries, and so forth and so on. There are prayer houses created. Men go more to the churches. Men want more peace, you see, in the midst of wars, mind you. Situations like wars and atrocities do crop up when the Advent takes place. Why? Because all the more such situations remind mankind of God, His existence.
Just as in the time of Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and all of the past advents of the Avatar.
Yes. In the past advents,
Did Baba ever relate anything to you regarding his past avataric advents on the earth?
Well, sometimes you see, when Baba spoke of Jesus, he would reveal of his past advent as Jesus, the Christ, you see, and said that how meek he was, how loving he was, and yet he was crucified, you see. How much he was tortured, put to torture. He did so much good, meaning thereby that he came there full of love for man, and man's hatred, animosity, crucified him. But then there is one more incident that your question reminds me of. One day, all of a sudden, you see, he started describing his weaknesses in the past advents. Have you heard of that before?
I had heard of it once before, but go ahead.
You would like to hear of that? Well, one day he starts enumerating.
You were there then?
Yes, I was there, of course. So he started enumerating, you see, that he said, when I was Zoroaster, it so happened that while I was in the act of prayers, someone came and gave me the stab in the back. At that time, I just threw the rosary at him. It is said so. And the person died on the spot. That was my weakness. At the time of Ram, it so happened that I forsook Sita because the laundryman, you see, started spreading rumors that Sita had betrayed Ram. I shouldn't have done that, he said. Then at the time of Lord Krishna, in order to pacify Arjun, his right-hand man, you see, he showed him his universal form, you see. Arjun was considered to be the most strong-willed person living on earth at the time. And he could not take in the words of Lord Krishna that you find in Gita, you see, that there is nobody who dies, that nobody is who is born, everything is just in him and so forth, everybody are in him. There is no relative, no mother, no father, no kith or no kin. So Arjun couldn't gulp these things, so he had to give Arjun an experience of his universal form, where Arjun got so awestruck with the form that everything seemed to be, it was like a huge mill, you see, wherein everything was just crushed in him and was spitted out of him. So that was his universal form. He said that that was one of his weaknesses during one of the advents.
To reveal
his universal form to Arjun. Well, then we come to, from Lord Krishna, we come to now say Buddha. What happened there? Says, I ought to have revealed to mankind that there are stages after the nirvana. I took the consciousness of man to that level at the time where nirvana, once attained, is the goal. That was my weakness.
But he should have
revealed further, he said. He didn't say that, but he says that was my weakness at the time when I was Buddha, that I revealed to mankind as far as nirvana and not further than that. Then he says, at the time of Jesus, when I was crucified, I have been recorded as saying, O Father, why hast thou forsaken me? I ought not to have done that. That's my weakness, he said. Then at the time of Muhammad, you see, Baba said, when I was Muhammad in that advent, my weakness was that I did not reveal to mankind that I was God in human form. I simply I revealed myself as the messenger of God. Then naturally after Muhammad was the advent, this advent of Avatar Meher Baba. So we expected something about this advent. So in a very humorous manner, Baba dismissed the weakness of this advent, saying that when I come back after 700 years, I will reveal to you all the weakness of Avatar Meher Baba in my next advent. So those are the weaknesses of his past advents, as he called them. Anything more?
Baba's manifestation this time, I understand, is to be the combination or the consolidation of all of the advents from before.
Yes, he said about his manifestation that his manifestation will be the greatest this time.
Had he said anything regarding his manifestation to you as to how it would surpass the past advents of his on the earth?
First, he has said just this much, as far as I recall now, that his manifestation will be the greatest of all the past advents. But then, if we go into the details of what manifestation actually means, well, there are several explanations coming forth from several different quarters.
What was Baba's explanation?
Baba's own explanation was nothing of the sort, you see. It's all conjectures from those who were with Baba and those who have not even seen Baba, you see, and who have only heard his words. Manifestation means worldwide recognition. Just as we say now, we talk about Jesus the Christ, you see. We need not go into details that he was the Son of God, as he called himself, that he and his Father were one, are one, that I am the one that was expected, and so forth. We know Jesus the Christ means we know that it was one of his past advents. Wherever you go in the world, you find that, you see. But as Vivekananda once said, that we know in India of Jesus the Christ much more than those who know in the West, you see. So likewise, Baba had said that his manifestation would be the greatest, meaning thereby that there won't be, where time will come when there won't be a spot in the world where humanity will not know of him. That will be the greatest manifestation, you see. His manifestation, that means there are some people who visualize that he will come from the clouds, that there will be a huge bright light, you see, pouring out of the skies, you see, and reminding us of Baba's manifestation. And there Baba will appear in all his glory and all that sort of thing. Well, I don't say that they don't interpret Baba's manifestation rightly, but at the same time, I must say with certain reservations about this sort of manifestation of Baba. Baba will reveal himself in individual hearts as well as to the world of his divinity. And when the world recognizes his advent, which we now call in terms of his past advent, because he has dropped his body, that will be the day of his manifestation. It won't be one day, it will be gradually dawning upon mankind of his advent. And a day will arrive when the whole world will know of him. And that will be his greatest manifestation. That's how I feel it, mind you, sir. That doesn't mean that Eruch speaks directly from what Baba has said. That's how I conjecture on this particular theme. That's all. That's my conjecture.
When there's a question in the West, at least in America, which has been asked a number of times by
many people. And it's about the inner circle of Baba. Is the Mandali the inner circle, or do the Mandali know who the inner circle is composed of Baba's 12 most intimate disciples?
Well, Irwin, your question about your circle of Baba, you have not selected the right person to answer this question. Because, I will tell you why I say this. Because when I first joined Baba to live with him, when Baba ordered me to leave all and follow him, it was in the year 1938, on 1st of August, I came to Baba to live with him. At that time, it so happened that the atmosphere in Meherabad was surcharged with the talk of circles. The inner circle, the outer circle, the 12 circles or the 10 circles of the avatar and so forth. I was just a novice who was in the midst of the old-timers, sitting and quietly listening to these talks, you see. And I was a student in engineering, and I had to deal much with geometry and trigonometry, and I was wonderstruck as to why these spiritual-minded people talk in terms of circles, you see. And it so happened that soon after this, one day Baba asked me, what is the talk that you hear in Meherabad when I am not with you? He said, well, there are talks you see on different subjects and all that. But there is one talk that has intrigued me, and that is the talk that is going around about something to do with circles, which I know nothing of. So he said, he stopped. We were climbing the hill, you see. My duty was to bring Baba down the hill, holding the umbrella over him, and to take him back at the appropriate time, you see, when he wanted to go back, holding the umbrella on his head, you see, to protect him from the sun, direct rays of the sun. So there he halted on the way and said, pointing to the ears, says, look, Eruch, he said, through his alphabet board and gestures, he says, whatever you have heard of circles, you see, hear it, or you hear in future, hear it with 1 ear, and let it pass through the second ear. So that's why I say, Irwin, that you have chosen a wrong person to answer your query regarding circles.
Well, I felt if anyone should know, you have lived with Baba long enough to hear his reply.
Well, to that, of course, I must refer to you about his having given a talk, quite a lengthy talk on circles, you see, and the article has appeared in the issue, one of the issues of the Awakener, you see. And that will give you some idea of what he meant by circles and all that, you see.
There isn't anything you could add to that?
No.
Okay. Living in Meherazad with Baba, how did you get your food? Did you eat well every day? Your clothing? Did you go to the market to buy your clothing? How did you come by all these things? Food, clothing, your necessities?
Well, our stay with Baba in Meherazad or wherever we were, you see, was a stay. We cannot call it as living with the God-man. It was a day-to-day stay or day-to-day living, you see. For food, Baba provided us with food. The food was so simple that once Harry Kenmore remarked, you see, when Dr. Harry Kenmore came to our place at Meherazad, first, he says, Eruch, what did you have for your lunch today? I said, dal and rice. The next day he asked me, what did you have for lunch today? I said, dal and rice. The third day, dal and rice. So he said, now let us square this thing up. He said, when I ask you on a certain day, see, what did you eat? You should reply, dal and rice. And on the next day you should reply, rice and dal. So that will give a variety, you see. So our food was really very simple. sometimes Baba would spread a feast for the Mandali, because some outsider or the close ones who would come from Bombay or Pune or from any distant place, they would bring some sweets or some food, cooked food for us. So it was a day of feast for us. Baba never starved us for a single day unless and until he asked us to have fasts, days of fasts, when we never touched water or food. That was quite different. But during my stay with Baba, never once have I ever experienced that we had to starve. We had our fill. We used to eat a lot because we were young and we could digest well. Those who were old and could not digest, they ate according to their appetite. But I remember having eaten good quantity of food. Baba never kept any, gave any restrictions on the consumption of food, but the food was very simple. Same thing with the clothing, you see. Well, we would just be clothed to protect our bodies, not in suits or special dress or anything of the sort. But then at the same time, Baba never kept us naked, you see. Everything was within limits, and whatever Baba offered us, it was something very great to us. Even a stale bread offered by Baba would be as rich as a piece of cake to us. Just as a t-shirt offered by Baba to protect our body would be like a dress to us. And usually the clothes came from the close ones who offered them to be distributed by Baba's own hands, and he would distribute them to us. Handkerchiefs, socks, or woolies, all these things were given by Baba people to be distributed to the Mandali. Even now, what I am wearing and having these things are nothing but things that have been given to us by others. You see, these shoes belong to my father. This shirt was left behind by one of the Westerners when he came in 1969. You see, this one. These pair of trousers that I am wearing, somebody offered this piece of cloth, you see, for me to make a pair of trousers, you see. So it's like that.
Sometimes Baba seemed to lay stress sometimes on not hurting the feelings of other people. Could you like open that up a little bit more to get a little bit more insight into that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You see, Baba had said that the secret of spirituality is never to hurt the heart of anybody. That means never hurt anybody's feelings. Never to hurt the heart, because heart is his abode. If you hurt the heart, you hurt him where he resides. But then he created one exception to it, that you shouldn't go to the extent of pleasing anybody's sexual appetite. That was a taboo. You go to any extent, at the cost of your happiness, you try to give relief to people, to not hurt the feelings, but not to the extent of acquiescing in the requests for any sexual intercourse or sexual habits. That, he said, will drive you away from the path of spirituality.
Did Baba ever point out to you when perhaps you had been harsh to someone at that point, at that time, how not to hurt the feelings of that individual?
Yes, it's a good reminder. Many occasions came, you see, and especially during the darshan hours or darshan days when there would be crowds, you see, and we were under great strain, you see, to make arrangements and all that. It was not very practical for me especially to not hurt the feelings of the others, you see. Sometimes I would just express my feelings in a way that would hurt the feelings of others, you see. So, and if at all that had happened in presence of Baba, at once Baba would stop me, admonish me, and I still remember several occasions when Baba asked me to bow down to that person whose heart was hurt because of my harsh words.
I remember Baba spoke to you one time about detachment. There was a man that wanted to take a picture of you with his camera, and at that time you didn't feel that he should be taking a picture of you, Eruch. It was not important.
Yeah.
And do you recall that incident?
Yeah, I recall that incident about exercising my detachment, you see, but it was just a phony detachment, as Baba pointed out to me. So there was an incident, you see, when a certain person who had come for Baba's darshan, he took a fancy to me and thought that I was with Baba for so many years and I was the interpreter of Baba's gestures, and somehow or other, you see, to him, I was some sort of a personality. And I detested this sort of concept or understanding in anybody. And naturally he tried to take a picture of me, and I avoided that. And there was a lot of argument over this subject, you see, outside Baba's room. Baba overheard this sort of argument and clapped his hand. That was a signal that I should go and see him. So I went inside and Baba asked me as to what was happening. Why was the argument taking place? I said, somebody wants to have a picture of me. Baba said, what is it that stops you from making another person happy? You see, if he wants to take a picture, why not? I said, I don't like anybody taking pictures, you see. There's a sort of a misunderstanding, you see. If they want just a picture, that's a different thing. But what they say is that because I'm an interpreter of Baba, because I'm somebody great, they want a picture of mine. Baba said, it doesn't matter. What harm is there? If you don't take cognizance of this fact, and if you just simply stand there, in answer to his request, and if you don't take cognizance of what he says, what harm is there? No sooner you take cognizance, you're caught, you're trapped in those with those impressions. But if you don't take cognizance, you just give in answer to his given to his request, it doesn't matter. What harm is there if you allow yourself to be snapped? So from that date, it so happened, you see, the way Baba, I cannot reproduce the actual sentences that Baba told me, but I still remember that from that day, nothing stops me to condescend, or you may call it to agree to the wishes or requests of people who want to take pictures or anything of the sort, knowing fully well that if ever I were to take cognizance of it, I am trapped of it. But if they just request, I just stand there and finish. The subject is off and over. This reminds me of a very beautiful story that I had once read. And the story is like this. There were two Zen monks, you see, Zen Buddhists. One day, it was a rainy day when they were returning home from their walks, one of their walks. And there was a lot of water on the road, you see. Those days were not the days, you see, where we had these roads built, you see, specially for heavy traffic or anything of the sort. There were a lot of potholes and ditches and you may call ponds on the way, you see. So it so happened that there was a young lady who didn't feel like crossing that stretch of water over that road that was there. So one of the monks lifted the girl and crossed that stretch and put her back there on the road. The other monk, you see, who saw this was shocked. A monk having touched a woman and lifted her. So, he kept quiet over this incident. When the other monk saw the monk having carried the woman, you see, and put her by on the road, he was so shocked, you see, that he observed silence. And both the monks walked up to the monasteries in complete silence, speaking no words. When they reached the monastery, it so happened that the monk who had witnessed the scene admonished the other monk, saying, "How dare you touch that woman and carried her?" He says, "What do you speak of?" He says, "I just left her at the end of the ditch. And you still carry her to the monastery?" So that's how our mind plays tricks, you see. The man who had not committed the act seemed to have got trapped in the impressions, whereas the person who had actually lifted the girl and carried her, seemed to have just left her at the place and forgot about it completely. So that's how our mind played tricks. Any more questions?
Yes, there was another question. Did you ever reach a point with Baba where you got frustrated and then you got angry, mad at him?
Well, I have one incident to tell you, and that was because of complete exhaustion. You see, Baba would send me on errands, sometimes on foot, sometimes in bullock carts, in tongas, and mostly on bicycle. And for miles together, you see. And no sooner I completed the errand and returned to Baba and report, there would be another one ready for me, and he would send me out. So day in and day out, day after day, weeks after weeks, months after months, years after years, this was too much. It was telling upon my health, and I used to feel very exhausted. One day he sent me out on an errand for about 12 miles on bicycle. Not just one errand in a day, it was, I think, the fourth one that I was executing. And on my return, I got so fed up and exhausted, my mind started playing a trick, you see. It said that, Eruch, if you were to return immediately after this errand, the result is that you will be sent back for something else, and your body now can no longer stand. So it revolted. The body and mind revolted. And there was a culvert there, you see. It was a culvert. We call, you see, there was a roadside, on the road, there is a small, tiny bridge-like thing, you see, for water to pass underneath the road, and you build those, we call them culverts, you see. There are two little parapets built, you see. So I spotted one. It was a broad one. I said, best is that you sleep here. And instead of reporting to Baba, halfway, I must have returned halfway, about, say, 6 miles or so, and I thought it best to relax and go to sleep. So I tied the cycle to my wrist, you see, the wheels, and I just went to sleep. Dared to do that, you see, for the first time, and I think it was for the last time too. And then, when I returned, Baba asked me, so how many miles you had to go? I said, 12 miles. How many miles you had to return? I said, 12 miles. 24 miles. And you took nearly 4 hours. What was the delay? Why were you so late in returning? Oh, I said, I was rather tired and I had to relax a bit, you see. Oh, where did you relax? He asked me. Oh, on a culvert I slept. Oh, you did go to sleep? He said, yeah. Well, it's good. Body needs rest. But remember, henceforth, it is better to come back home and rest instead of lying there on the culvert there with a bicycle. Someone might pinch the bicycle, you see, and you'll be deprived of that and you'll have to walk the distance. So I had to be very careful to see that the cycle was intact for you to return, you see, after your rest. That's how he just brushed aside that episode lightly, you see, admonishing me to be very, in his admonishing me, he warned me also not to repeat the incident once again. So that's how, yes, he used to keep us engaged, you see, all day. And we were not free in the nights too. We had to keep watch near Baba, keep awake. Not the whole night, but a portion of the night. You see, when we would like to rest and sleep undisturbed, there would be frequent calls even after our watch hours are over. And he would call us, summon us, and would just say, remember this point for the morning. That's all. And go back. We go back and go to sleep. There was never a problem with not going to sleep, you see. We would go to sleep at an instant, you see, and wake up at the instant that we were summoned. We needn't have any sleeping pills, or we needn't have any plugs in our ears for any noise. Nothing was there to disturb us. Nothing was there to break our sleep, you see. We could go to sound sleep state in an instant. and wake up no sooner Baba summoned us. But there were instances when when the body used to rebel against exhaustion, that's all.
Is there ever a time where you told Baba a lie? And, was there ever such a time?
Well, I cannot recall any
Something that you told him that was untrue.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There was never any incident like that. But I'm not sure. Not that I am not a truthful person, but at present I cannot recall. This much I can say, that it was not a lie, but I tried to steal something from Baba's room. There was one incident that way. You see.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Oh, you want to hear that? Well, you see, when Baba would be resting and sleeping, as a man snores, the God-man also snored, and much more. But at the same time, Baba's snoring and deep sleep was quite different. It was the God-man's deep sleep. It was the awake deep sleep, you see. And there are many instances when we got experiences of his awake deep sleep state. One of the incidents is this, that once Arnavas, Nariman's wife, was ordered by Baba to take an analgesic, that is an aspirin, you see, for her headache. And she was ordered to take it before going to bed in the night. She forgot to take the medicine from the chest, and the chest was in Baba's sleeping room in her house. Baba was a guest in her house in Bombay. So just when she was about to go to bed, she remembered the order, and she couldn't break the order. So she reported the matter, you see. She was very much worried, and she felt that it is best now that something be done, you see. And it was so late that the chemist shops were all closed. So I promised her to get the pill, you see, stealthily from Baba's bedroom. Bhav was on watch near Baba at the time. I came to the door. I heard Baba's deep snoring, you see, and I dared myself to enter the room. Silently I entered, you see, without making a noise, opened the door, entered, opened the chest, got the medicine out of it, and while doing it, you see, I was successful thus far, and my mind, you see, was overjoyed, thinking slyly that, well, Eruch can commit a theft in God-man's own room, you see. And then I took the pill out of the bottle and got out of the room very softly. And just when I stepped out of the room, I told Arnavas that I was about to tell Arnavas that, well, I succeeded in this theft. Just then Baba clapped, you see, and asked Bhav as to who had entered the room. And Bhav must have reported that it was Eruch who was there. So Baba called me and asked me what was the reason why I had entered the room. So I just reported that it was in obedience to your order to Arnavas that I had to come and take the pill. He says, go back and don't disturb. So that's how, you see, this fault was committed by me. And I felt so proud that I could do that, but he caught me just at the 12th hour, so to say. Any more things to be said? Or this is now to just greet my brothers and sisters in the United States of America and in all parts of the world. I salute them, you see, for their love for Avatar Meher Baba, our beloved God-man. We are so proud of their love, of their service in his cause. We feel overwhelmed when we hear the stories of their work in his cause. I bow down to their love. Jai Baba to you all. Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Quick, get on a bus.
if you could sum up your entire life with Baba in just a few phrases, if it were possible to do such a thing, how would you do that? How would you sum it up? That's what you had learned or what you had realized from being with him all these years.
Well, what is there to sum up? The summing up has to be done by Baba and not by me. The thing is that the only thing that I can say in this respect is that one has to be in the presence of the God-man with complete obedience at heart, with a willingness to abide by the orders and to live a life of complete honesty without any care or concern for the next day. We have to live near the God-man by seconds, not by days or by years. Every second is a fresh life in the presence of the God-man. Every action that we do, you see, is always to be dedicated to him. And my only prayer, day in and day out, was that anything done good or bad, I surrender at his feet. Any action, praiseworthy or unthinkable, I surrendered to him and at his feet before retiring for the day. So that we do not get trapped by any sort of impressions or be just engulfed in self-praise.
What message would you give to all those who aspire to surrender and obey Baba as you've attempted to do throughout the years?
Well, I am not a person to give any messages, but then you asked me for a message to the people who would aspire to obey Baba and surrender to him as I have attempted. The only message that I give is, if at all I am worthy of giving any messages, just to remember him, day in and day out, just to glorify him in every little acts and actions, with every blossom that one sees in the tree, or with every creature or bird or an animal or a person that he sees, that he resides in everyone. He is the one who makes them act and do things. Just glorify him, just praise him, just remember him, and that's being with him and his constant company. Make him his constant companion, and that's how he or she can make his life worthwhile on this earth. Anything more that you wish me to say?
Is there any meditation that Baba wanted you to do?
Well, meditation brings in a sort of separation for the... Meditation brings in a sort of separation, you see, from the personality on which our mind wants to focus on. Being near Baba all the time, you see, I had no opportunity to meditate on him. So there was no question of meditating on Baba. But this doesn't mean that Baba didn't want anybody to meditate.
You mean he never gave you any meditation to do?
Yes, there were 2 occasions when he told us to sit in meditation. And that too, with a clap of hand, we had to start the meditation, and within 10 minutes there was another clapping of his hand when we had to just get up from meditation and go to him. That's all. And he told us how we should start our meditation. He told us that we should first think of God as the ocean of effulgence, and that continue to bring into our vision the effulgence of God, and that in that ocean we ourselves are deeply drowned in it, and continue to think and focus our thoughts on that. And just when we started doing that, he clapped his hands and we had to go back to him, that's all. That was a meditation. And on another occasion, he said, just think of me. So he again made us sit, you see, at one spot. Different Mandali people were given different spots. And we sat there and we had just started thinking of him. In the meantime, he clapped us and we had to go to him, that's all. That is my experience. There are others who sit in meditation for hours together, you see, they meditate on Baba. That's their experience. There is Kekobad who just continues to repeat his name and meditates on him. That's his experience. My experience has been, unfortunately, having no time to meditate on Baba. Meditation involves separation. And somehow or other, fortunately or unfortunately, I was given the task to be with Baba almost all the time. That's how I did meditation, of course.
Seems to me that was a meditation in itself.
Well, that you may call that a meditation.
Be with Baba.
Yes.
Where is the need to meditate?
To think of him all the time, to be with him. You may call it meditation or concentration.
You know, it's said that when Baba does the must work, that he seems to become so absorbed with these must when he goes out to get them, that seems to become like his whole world at the time.
Yes. When he goes out for must,
like he forgets
hunting and all that.
And
Yes. Because so often Baba had said that musts are his most beloved children. And when he comes across one of these musts, you see, he seems to get lost in their care, concern, giving them comfort, doing service to them, feeding them, clothing them, bathing them, tending to them, even pressing their feet and massaging their bodies.
Massaging their bodies too.
Yes. That's how he did it. And he would completely ignore the Mandali when he is with the must, you see. He used to get lost in giving them all sorts of comforts.
Sometimes I understand that these must would give Baba like bread that was very moldy to eat, and he would eat it, whatever.
He would eat anything that they offered, you see. Not only that, but once there was an incident when a must removed all his dirty clothes and offered them to Baba and asked for Baba's clothes, you see. And he did that. Baba gave him his own clothes, and Baba put on the dirty clothes of the must, you see. He would go to any extent to please and make his beloved child happy as much as he can. Well, my name is, of course, Eruch. You want my name, full name? My name is Eruch Jessawalla. And what do you want me to say now?
You want to speak about Mananash? We spoke about that?
Right.
The things that Baba said about his Mananash.
Well, Baba said...
And the things you witnessed about it too.
That I may be able to say, because what Baba has said, you see, it has appeared in the circulars and it's in print. So, well, whatever I witnessed, I may be able to account for it.
Yes.
So we started our Manana's phase, you see, as Baba said. It was one of the phases in the new life. And it started at Hyderabad. Prior to that, Baba asked us to make preparations for Mananash work. By the way, do you know what Mananash means? Manonash means the annihilation of the mind. Man, nash. Man means mind, nash means annihilation of the mind. So he asked us to find out a cave in Hyderabad, because Baba was stationed at Hyderabad at the time. And Pendu and I were in search of a good cave, and with the help of an agent, so to say, another lover of Baba there, local lover, we found the cave. And we showed it to Baba. It was on a hill, and the hill was absolutely bald, as I called it, because not a blade of grass was there. And for the supply of water, we were shown a cavity in that rocky hill, you see. The rain had fallen and there was some water that was there. So Baba selected that hill for the Mananash work. Before he started the work there, he asked us to make preparations for building a sort of a hut-like thing there. And with the help of the local workers, we kept ourselves prepared for Baba to start the work. I still remember that day, you see, when we went there in the evening with all our luggage, and the main part of the luggage was the articles that had to do with Mananash work. He had asked us to prepare a replica of a church, a mosque, a fire temple of the Zoroastrians, a temple of the Hindus, and so forth, you see. Houses of worship of different religion. And we got these models made from Agra of soft stone. They look like marble replicas. And we carried these to the hill there, and Baba wanted me to spread them out, you see, in his cave. And what he did inside the cave with these little temples and churches and mosques and pagodas and other things, you see, we don't know, because he would sit all alone and do his Mananash work. The Mananash work started there. He continued to do work there for some days, and then he left the place. And we went out of Hyderabad, and we passed some days on road, and Baba brought us towards Meher. The night prior to reaching Meher, we were halting at a place about 8 miles from Meher. We were very tired. We reached the place at about 9 o'clock in the evening, late evening, and there Baba rested. And the 4 Mandali who accompanied Baba also rested there. Of course, one of them taking the turn as the night watchman. And there when Baba was resting, Baba said that he heard that his rest was being disturbed by some noise inside the room. And, well, I tried to find out the cause of the noise, and the noise was a nesting bird there, a dove that was nesting there inside the room. It was a place there, unoccupied for so many months or years, you may call it. It was an old mosque. It's called the Imampur Mosque, where Baba rested in one of the rooms there. And, well, the birds are bound to nest over there, and there are so many other things that are nesting over there, you see. But the bird seemed to flap its wings, and that disturbed Baba. So Baba asked me to throw the bird out, you see, of the room. So as I was about to act, he called me back. And you know, his calling me and his telling me is all through gestures, because Baba is observing silence. I need not dilate upon his silence and the way that he called out. So when I was about to throw the birds, Baba called me back through his clapping, you see. And I went back, and Baba said that, well, it's that I shouldn't touch the bird, and that I had forgotten to remind him that such an act shouldn't happen. It's a long story, brother, as to what he meant by such an act, and that I should remind him, the God-man. In New Life, you know, what happened is that there were some people who were ordered by Baba to remind him if he got angry on some, if he were to be cruel to some, and so forth. In New Life, he was our companion, and those who followed him in New Life were his companions. Our belief in him as the God-man was within our hearts. We had never to express our belief, but we had to take him as a companion, and he took us as his companions, and he never referred to us as his disciples or did anything or acted as if he were the God-man. So that's how in New Life we had to remind him of certain acts that he might do, like expressing cruelty or anger. So this sort of act of his, asking me to throw the nesting bird out of the room just because he was disturbed, was a cruel act. And Baba said that I had made a slip, and it was good that he thought of it, and it was prevented at the 11th, or at the last moment, you may call it, the 11th hour as we call it sometimes. So then Baba went back to rest and told me to tell us, to remind him about it the next morning. Well, early morning, Baba got up as usual, got out of his room, and we helped him to wash his face and all that as usual. And then he called the rest of the companions, you see, Pendu, Gustaji and Baidul, the three. And they were by Baba's side, and then Baba ordered me to narrate what had happened overnight, the night before. So I told them the stories, and Baba then all of a sudden said that this ought not to have happened. Luckily it hasn't happened, fortunately. Otherwise it would have been a great blow to his new life. So in order to forget the episode, in order to rectify it, he commanded us to hit him with our slippers, with our chappals as we call them. He wanted us to slap him with our chappals. Well, we were duty bound to obey him in New Life as his companions, and we did so. Then he told us that it would be a complete act if we were to spit on him for his expressing anger and disturbance and cruelty. So we did that too. So for a slip of one of the companions, that is myself, Baba had to undergo this humiliation at our hands. It was not a pleasant thing for us to do. It was most painful. It was distressing. But we obeyed him. Baba gave so much stress to obedience that nothing came in the way of his companions or his disciples. When he commanded a certain thing, his disciples, whether they be his disciples in old life or whether they be his companions in new life, they had to carry out the command. And they did so willingly, just for the sake of their love for the God-man. Soon after that, we started and ended our journey in New Life right on the top of the hill at Meher. The hill is there. This morning we had been with the Australian group, and it reminded me of Baba going right across the countryside, leaving the road, and the four of us followed Baba up the hill. We went there and stayed there for some days. And then all of a sudden Baba expressed his desire that his work on the hill is now completed. And he wanted to complete the phase of Manonash right at Meher. So the two cabins that were already there on the top of the hill prior to Baba leaving for New Life, and which were now occupied by Baba during the phase of Manonash work, Baba wanted the two cabins to be brought down and rebuilt into one cabin of the same material that was there on the hill within a very short span of, say, a couple of days, so that he can start the work immediately. So, well, we who were on the hill helped to get the cabins dismantled, and Padri, who was summoned from Meherabad, to rebuild with the help of a carpenter here. So we started supplying the material from top of the hill, and Padri collected it down the hill and got the two cabins into one. Here is the cabin. This is called the Manonash cabin here. It's made into one cabin. While we were dismantling the cabin and the material being sent down and the cabin being rebuilt over here, Gustaji, Pendu and Baidul and myself stayed on the hill in the open, I think for a couple of nights or more, till we were summoned here by Baba, when Baba started occupying the cabin and resumed his Manonash work. The models of the church, temple, the pagoda, and the fire temple of the Parsis, Zoroastrians, they are at Adi's office now in a showcase. The same models were then placed here in the newly built cabin, you see. And Baba would ask me to place them on a shelf and keep a chair in front of these models for him to sit there. And when he was ready to start the work, he told me to leave the room, and he shut the cabin and stayed inside. Nobody knows what he did there. It went on for some days, this work. Of course, not that he locked himself for so many days. He worked for a couple of hours. He worked for sometimes 4 hours at a stretch. And then he would call us inside the cabin. And then he would be served lunch and food and all that. But the work continued for some days. On the last day, he made me write on a slip of a paper. I do not remember the exact words, but I still remember the gist of it. Because the paper was taken away by Baba eventually, the same night. In the afternoon, he made me write this. The gist of it is that all the rites, rituals and ceremonies of all the religions of the world are hereby set to fire, you see, and done away with. Well, I didn't know what he meant. Then later on in the evening, he asked me to have a pit dug here, just behind the cabin, to light a fire there, which we call dhuni fire. So when the pit was ready, when it was after sunset, Baba and the 4 Manonash companions, and I think Padri was also there, and 1 or 2 more, I don't remember. Baba set fire to the dhuni. He lighted the fire, and then he made a spray, a prayer that he dictated. And I think it is published in one of the circulars. If you go through them, you'll find them. And then he made me read out that which he made me write on the slip of paper, which he carried in his pocket. He took it out from his pocket and made me read it. And I read it out. And then he just put the whole slip of paper in the dhuni fire. And then when the fire burnt out, he told us the next day to bring some empty tins, cans, and he collected the ashes from the dhuni, packed them very well there, and said that this dhuni ash is not to be used by anybody in the world. It's to be just kept. That's all. And that marked the end of the Manonash period. Soon after that, Baba started his preparations to go to the West in 1952. In 1952, Baba went to the West, and before going to the West, he told us that the next phase of his complicated free life would begin. And you know what happened then, of course. When he went to the West, to the States, United States of America, he met with the accident right in the heart of the continent. And there, the complicated free life began. That's the end of the Manonash period, boy.
The Manonash period, wasn't that a time when Baba was setting the guidelines so that the seekers of the future would be able to attain that annihilation of mind for which Mananash meant? Isn't that what it meant? Is that what Baba was doing?
Well, I don't know what Baba was doing and meaning by Mananash, see, new life. For certain, of course, it was not a Mananash for himself, you see, because his mind is the universal mind. And if it had any meaning attached to the Mananash of the universal mind, it would mean the annihilation of all our minds. So surely it was not the annihilation of the mind of the God-man. What I believe and rightly think is that this phase of Mananash that Baba went through was not for himself. It was a sort of a period of acceleration in the Mananash attempts of the aspirants who were seeking the annihilation of their minds, you see, for their onward march towards unity with the truth. It was a sort of a help to those who were ripe for the annihilation of the mind. Baba accelerated their progress towards annihilation of their mind. That's how I take it.
Did you ever think that Baba was working on the minds of the Mandali members?
Well,
did you ever feel that?
No, I never felt anything about it because apart from feeling anything, we had no time to think about ourselves, you see. We just carried out his commands and we kept ourselves absolutely uninvolved in whatever Baba did, you see. We never felt that Baba was working upon our minds. We always knew that Baba was doing his universal work. It was for the whole humanity, you see. And who were we after all? We were just one from a group from the whole human race, that's all. But we had the blessedness to be with him because he permitted us to be with him. Otherwise, we never carried any stamp of distinction on our backs or on our heads or on our foreheads. We were just one of the little tiny group of people, you see, who were allowed to stay by his side and do the work. That's all.
What about the time when Baba had the animal ashram, the ashram of animals, all the different types of animals? Could you tell us what he did during that time?
Well, all what we could gather from the way that Baba was with the animals was that he was fond of these animals, you see, and he liked to keep these pets, you see, in the ashram, and apportion duties to different inmates there. Baba had kept pigs and monkeys and rabbits and dogs and donkeys and cows and calves and water buffaloes and milk buffaloes and a camel and different types of horses and all that. It's not just for the sake of pastime or anything of the sort. We knew that. We also knew that he was fond of animals, as much fond of animals as he was fond of children and human beings and any other creatures and the plants and everything. But then what happened was that very rarely we could just sense as if that, well, by having these animals, Baba wanted us to serve them. And by serving them, Baba gave us another opportunity, another venue for obeying his orders, and we did that. And the peculiarity of the whole thing is that when he kept all these animals, and when the feeding time approached, you see, they were fed with real good stuff, by the way. Not that the Mandali was made to starve, but at least the Mandali would want to share with their fodder, you see. Just as he kept the monkeys, you see, when the monkeys were there, they were given. So when the monkeys were fed prunes and dried fruits, you see, Mandali also was supplied with good food by Baba and all that, but well, they were not given dried fruits or prunes. The pigs were given the best of fruits, you see, to eat, and the cows and the calves and all were very well looked after. The peacock was given good diet too, I remember. So sometimes we used to remark how blessed these animals and these creatures were, yes, in God's darbar, as we call it. Darbar means court. That they were having such good treatment, how blessed they were. And how blessed we were to be given the opportunity to serve Baba and these creatures of his. So that's how it was. You know, of course there were certain pets, you see, like that Chum, the first dog that Baba had there at Meherabad. Then later on at Meherazad there were Peter and that Bhuti dog and Mastan. They were great chums of Baba too.
Did the animals, did Baba ever say anything about the work that he was doing with these animals?
No, he never said anything about the work that he did, but well, he never used to express anything about what he did and for what he did. He never did. He never told us anything about that, you see. He just, from all outward appearances, it appeared as if here is a man, you see, a perfect man having real love for the dumb creatures.
I know that Baba often spoke that there was inner significance about his work.
But how are we to know about his inner significance, you see? All that we used to come to know was that it reflected, you see, sometimes through the news that we heard from the newspapers being read by some people who came from different parts of India and told us about certain events that took place. And casually, you see, a thought would pass across our minds. Well, oh, is that so? So it was on a sort of a universal scale that such a thing happened, just at the time when Baba was deeply engrossed in his universal work or something like that. That's all.
How were you able to match up the events in the papers to Baba's apparent outer work?
Well, sometimes he would start, you see, all of a sudden he would say that, well, we had to find out a certain number of needy people, you see. And he wanted to, distribute food grains to them, you see. And very soon, you see, we would find that a place was just devastating because of famine conditions. So, something to do with that. Then he himself had once told us, you see, about the war, the Second World War, that the Second World War was because of his universal work. You see, it was, no doubt it was an undesirable thing, but yet it was absolutely necessary.
Did he ever speak about a Third World War?
Yes, he has spoken of it, that there will be a great world war after this. Because while the war was going on, you see, the Second World War, he says that there will be no victor nor vanquished, for it will have to be continued in the great world war that is to come after this war ended. Well, so many years have passed by and we do not know, but every time we feel that we are on the verge, you see, of another world war, and every time some or other, you see, it's being put off.
At the East-West gathering, when Baba brought the East and the West together, you were interpreting many of Baba's words. Can you tell us, how it felt from your point of view to be the interpreter of Baba in front of all of the thousands of his lovers?
Never once any thought came across making me feel how I felt about it all. You see, because if I were to feel anything at the time while I'm interpreting, I won't be interpreting it properly. Because the most important thing that was necessary for an interpreter of Baba's gestures, or even while reading his board, was absolute one-pointed attention on interpretations. Means figuring it out, his gestures and so forth. If I have any stray thoughts or anything of the sort, you see, it will go very difficult for me to interpret his gestures. One-pointed attention was absolutely necessary. And never once such thoughts arose in my mind, you see. Because I knew that I was just to interpret Baba's gestures. It was not there for the big crowd or an individual. It's just my duty was to read his fingers. That's all. It mattered very little.
You must have had many moments where you were able to be alone with Baba.
Oh yes. There were many moments when I was all alone with Baba, and especially when I was keeping watch while he was in seclusion, or at night time when he was resting. Many years passed by, you see.
And what happened, what would usually occur, or whether some of the things that occurred when you were alone with Baba, what would he tell you or say to you?
Well, do you want to be rather personal about it here? One important thing I still remember, and it's very useful for all of us who know of Baba, is that soon after completing that book which is known as God Speaks, you see, there was some query from my side, and I was all alone with Baba, and he was resting in bed with a rug or a shawl, you see, over him. It was winter time. And I asked him a certain question, and he says to me, holding one fiber from the shawl, you see, he says, look how this shawl is. It's colorful with different designs and paint, colors. And I hold this thread, he says. And you are as if asking me what this particular design is at the very start of it. So I try to explain to you and pull the thread out, you see. And the design is no more. Then when you feel satisfied, when I say that, well, it's all illusory, it's all just a thing that is woven together and brought into and made into one design like that. Well, you're satisfied for the time being, he says. Then after an interval, you get another urge to find out what the next pattern is. And you put me another question after a month. And again, I am holding the thread between my thumb and finger all the time. So again I start explaining to you and explain to you the very futility of your query, you see, and search for the pattern that is woven in illusion because of Maya. And I pull the thread out further, you see, and the pattern is destroyed there. The design is destroyed. And then you feel satisfied with the explanation. And then he said, you wait for some more months and another question, and I pull the thread and I pull the thread, and there comes a time when I pull the whole design, when I destroy the whole design, because while you put the questions, I start explaining and answering you. And while answering you, I just have to satisfy you and show you that it's not there in reality. It's just woven into a pattern, a design. And the colors are there also because of the weaving that is being done, you see. So when I pull the thread further and further, and eventually it so happens that the shawl doesn't exist at all. Neither do the patterns or the designs in the shawl. Just the thread that comes out, you see. That's the truth. The very existence is woven into different patterns, into colors and species. So, this he explained to me when I was all alone. So this is one of the examples as to about our talks, you see, when we were together, you see. But that doesn't mean that he just spoke only metaphysics and explained to us things regarding God and illusion and Maya and all that. Look at this kid, you see, who wants to be in the show, you see. He wants to go, very fond of children, and he did play. He wanted to play with the children. He would love the children to come to him. He would caress them and kiss them and induce them to play with him, and he would distribute sweets to them, and he would squat on the ground to play marbles with them or any other game. He would join them in flying kites or play the game of 7 tiles with them.
You saw Baba doing these?
Yes. Not only saw, but, well, we had the good fortune to play with him too, because we are also children, although grown up.
Do you remember any amusing incidents when you played with Baba, chess or marbles or checkers or something?
No, I didn't play anything of this sort, but I played cricket with him, 7 tiles, badminton, sometimes helped him to fly a kite or so.
Did Baba always win?
Not always. He would allow us to win too, otherwise there would be no pleasure and no charm in the game, you see, if Baba were always to win. But he would show us how to win the game, you see. He would help us to win the game. Often he would win, of course. There's no doubt about it. He was a good marksman. He would. I feel as if that invariably he would hit the marble. He would never miss the aim. He was expert in playing marbles, very good at cricket, and had a very good aim. Because when we used to play the game of 7 tiles, we needed good aim, you see, to break the 7 tiles that were piled into one pile. And we had to throw the ball, you see, from a distance, and he would be there to hit it invariably. Not only that, but he made Dr. Kenmore also, with the help of his directions and instructions, hit the mark, although he was totally blind. Not once.
Hit the mark too.
Yes.
What was that, the game of 7 tiles?
7 tiles, yes. And that happened not once, but quite a few times. And that showed what a good instructor he was, Baba.
That sounds impossible.
To you it may sound impossible, ridiculous, but well, we were the witnesses to it.
Yes.
When Baba was in good mood, he would ask his close ones what he wanted. So, well, I found it so happened that there were certain boys, you see, who were around Baba at the time, and he happened to be in a happy mood there, and he asked these boys what they wanted in their life when they grew up. So somebody said that, well, he wanted to own a horse carriage, which we call a tonga over here. And another man said that he would like to open a shop, you see, and do business. And somebody else, you see, said that he would like to serve him all the time, you see. So Baba was in such a happy mood at the time, you see, he granted their boons. And after years, what we found was the man who wanted to own a tonga was the owner of a tonga, and he earned his livelihood by having a tonga and driving it. And another one who had asked for good business owned a shop, you see, and he did good business when he grew up. And the third one, who wanted to serve him all the time, continued to serve him and died in his service.
What about those who actually got...
And for the Mandali, once he asked, I remember, he asked the Mandali about what each one would want, you see. So somebody said, of course, that he would want to have God realization. Somebody said that he would want to have an opportunity to be with him all the time, whenever he reincarnated, he should reincarnate at the time when the God-man was on earth. And somebody said that all that he wanted was to serve him. And somebody said that he wanted absolutely nothing. And then Baba would interject, well, wanting nothing is also wanting something. So, to each one he would give such an opportunity, you see, to ventilate his feelings. After all this was asked and answered, Baba helped us, you see, by saying that, well, if ever you are asked to ask for a boon from the God-man, remember to ask him for desirelessness. Once you have the boon of desirelessness, you have everything. Because when somebody has everything and possesses everything, he cannot have any desire for anything. You follow? So ask for the boon of desirelessness, and you have everything with that boon. That's all. Well, you want to know about myself with Meher Baba. To be very frank, you see, when I am with Meher Baba, I was with Meher Baba's physical presence, all my attention was on how best to serve him. And he was a very loving friend, a very loving master, a very loving father, a very loving mother, all in one, you see. He never wanted me, or he never ever gave me a chance to fear him, you see. All the time, he promoted love in me for him. But then, I don't understand what you mean by my being in his physical presence and my personal feelings for him. My personal feelings and his personal feelings, whatever they may be, were just very casual, you see, in the sense that, well, I was there all the time, all attention to obey him, and he was there all the time, loving me. I knew that, that's all. And I had to carry out his commands, I had to take instructions from him, I had to take replies to be sent for the letters that he had received or the cables that he had received. He would dictate messages and discourses, and then I had to take them down, or prepare programs and planning for his tours and itineraries and all that sort of thing. And, well, when he rested, had to keep watch near him, sit down and be there to attend to him whenever he needed. Because he was observing silence, he always had somebody near him. He would allow us to massage his body, so that opportunity and that blessedness was also to my share. I massaged his body, I pressed his feet and legs and his hands, and shampooed his hair and then head, and gave him bath, and then shaved his beard. Yes, and combed his hair, and braided his hair, and trimmed his mustache. What else, you see? Anointed his body, you see. And clipped his toenails and fingernails. And these are the personal things that we had to attend to. Clean his room, sweep his room, do his bedding and bed, prepare his clothes, iron his clothes, wash his clothes, prepare water for his bath, and everything. Everything that was necessary for a wearer to do. Yeah. Same time, I had to be alert, you see, to interpret his gestures and anything and everything in the world that he would want us to do, you see, that's all. We had to be very prepared and ready for it, and I was ready for it too.